Welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're going to take some pretty dense reports and turn them into a clear visual journey. We're unpacking the data, the policies, and the massive technological leaps that are completely rewiring how we think about transportation and energy. And you might be wondering, why 2026? Well, because this is the critical inflection point. This is the exact moment where these niche pilot programs are suddenly scaling up into massive global standards and changing the energy landscape practically overnight.
Okay, let's dive right in with a massive question that's currently driving billions of dollars in investments and shaping the municipal policies of tomorrow. Is the way we power electric vehicles about to completely change? For decades, our electrical grid was basically a one-way street. Power plants generated electricity, we consumed it. It was, honestly, completely static. But what we are about to see is a shift toward a living, breathing, highly dynamic energy ecosystem where power flows back and forth. And doing that requires entirely new technology. To get a real grip on how this ecosystem is evolving, we're going to explore 4 distinct lenses today. First, the smart charging revolution. Second, the battery swapping boom. Third, vehicle-to-grid integration. And finally, the new Buy America regulations. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the smart charging revolution. Because the future of EV charging isn't just about pouring more concrete or laying down thicker copper cables. It's about working significantly smarter. So artificial intelligence is stepping in here to manage complex energy loads and drastically slash operational costs. And it's doing this without the need for expensive new physical grid upgrades. Think about what mitigating a demand charge actually looks like in the real world. Imagine a massive commercial fleet returns to the depot, and they all plug in at the exact same time. The utility company can slap them with an astronomical demand charge. A spike like that can literally cost a business thousands of dollars in a matter of minutes. By constantly analyzing demand forecasts and real-time grid usage, AI energy management acts as a total financial lifesaver. It automatically optimizes charging schedules and enables dynamic pricing, which lets network operators drastically improve their profitability just by turning on some intelligent software.
But hey, while AI expertly manages the invisible software load, the physical charging stations themselves are getting incredibly powerful. Ultra-fast chargers delivering 350 kilowatts or more are rapidly shifting into the mainstream right now. To really grasp the sheer scale of the energy we're talking about here, imagine the power draw of an entire residential neighborhood block. That is roughly the amount of concentrated electricity one of these stations is funneling into a single vehicle at a time. It's like a fire hose of electricity, and pushing that much power is what allows compatible vehicles to hit that magic milestone, reaching an 80% charge in roughly 15 to 20 minutes. We are finally rivaling the turnaround time of a traditional gas station. Moving right along to Section 2, the battery swapping boom. Because for some industries, even a 15-minute ultra-fast charge is a luxury they simply cannot afford. Now, if you're in the fast-paced world of urban delivery networks, downtime is literally your ultimate enemy. If you run a last-mile delivery fleet, every single minute your driver sits at a charging station is a minute of lost revenue. And this is creating a massive efficiency shift. Companies are entirely abandoning traditional wait-to-charge models for instantaneous swap-ready fleet systems. By using standardized modular battery packs, a delivery driver can just pull into an automated station, have their depleted battery mechanically swapped out for a fresh one in under 3 minutes, and immediately get back on their route. And the numbers on this are wild. This infrastructure shift is tracking at an explosive 25.3% compound annual growth rate. Look, a growth rate that high signifies a fundamental pivot across the entire logistics industry, not just a passing trend. Fleet operators and massive shipping conglomerates are aggressively shifting away from building their own proprietary plug-in networks. Instead, they are completely embracing open-format swap standard protocols. The market projections reflecting this pivot are just staggering. We are talking about a market leaping from $1.1 billion in 2025 to an absolute powerhouse of $12.5 billion by 2036. This decade-long surge represents a profound rethinking of business models into what experts are calling energy as a service. Think about the massive advantage here for a delivery company. If they don't have to actually purchase those massive, expensive batteries inside their vans, their upfront capital expenditure drops drastically. They are essentially just subscribing to the energy itself, which gives them completely predictable operational costs. You know, when we picture electric vehicles, we naturally tend to think of passenger cars, right? But the real overwhelming volume driving battery swapping is in urban commercial mobility. Two- and three-wheelers completely dominate this space, with a 62% market share. This is fueled heavily by the sheer density of megacities in places like China and India, where last-mile logistics mandates have created the perfect environment for this specific technology to thrive. Navigating dense, congested streets with small, high-frequency fleet vehicles makes the economics of swappable lithium iron phosphate packs incredibly compelling. All right, let's step back and look at the bigger picture in Section 3, vehicle-to-grid integration. We are moving beyond the vehicles themselves and looking at the entire energy ecosystem. Let's make sure we're on the same page here. Vehicle-to-grid, or V2G, essentially turns a vehicle from a mode of transportation into a mobile, revenue-generating power plant. Consider a really practical scenario, like a large fleet of electric school buses. During a scorching summer afternoon, city air conditioning units are blasting, right? The local power grid is incredibly stressed. Well, with V2G bidirectional technology, that fleet of school buses sitting idle in a parking lot can actually discharge its stored energy back into the grid. This actively prevents localized blackouts while simultaneously generating recurring income for the school district.
And guys, this isn't just sci-fi theory. Major regulatory bodies like the California Public Utilities Commission are actively holding forums right now to figure out the real-world logistics of connecting these localized power plants directly to our homes. The stakes of these utility and policy meetings are incredibly high, because if they don't get the implementation right, pumping massive decentralized amounts of power back into old grid infrastructure could lead to severe instability. But if they solve it, we get a beautifully balanced, resilient energy network. So, solving that complex implementation puzzle means navigating some massive hurdles. First and foremost, utility companies have got to figure out how to structure dynamic rates. They need to signal to customers exactly when it is actually profitable to discharge their batteries. Beyond that, they have to carefully calculate secondary distribution upgrade costs. Honestly, protecting everyday ratepayers is arguably the biggest challenge here. Policymakers absolutely must ensure that everyday families aren't forced to foot the bill to upgrade local neighborhood transformers just to handle these new two-way power flows. Which brings us to our final stop today, Section 4, New Buy America regulations. Because ultimately, who builds this physical infrastructure matters just as much as the technology itself. The Department of Transportation recently instituted a massive regulatory update regarding EV chargers. They've mandated a strict shift from requiring 55% domestic content all the way to 100% domestic content for any federally funded chargers, specifically citing vital cybersecurity protections. What makes this so impactful is that the revised waiver completely removes the previous gradual transition period. This immediate compliance requirement acts as an absolute shock to the system. It instantly changes the math for manufacturers who rely heavily on foreign-made components. To give you some context on the stated goals of this policy, Federal Highway Administration Administrator Sean McMaster noted that the Trump administration is committed to boosting America's industrial base and securing long-term supply chains. But look, rapidly shifting complex manufacturing processes back to the United States isn't exactly like flipping a switch. There is currently a massive scramble happening behind the scenes. Energy companies are frantically trying to secure their piece of federal infrastructure funding while simultaneously being forced to completely reshuffle their global logistics and manufacturing pipelines. So bringing everything we've talked about today together, from artificial intelligence completely optimizing our local grids to $12 billion battery swapping markets emerging to support continuous urban delivery loops, to new federal policies demanding entirely domestic supply chains, the sheer scale of this transformation is undeniable. We are literally watching a complete and total ecosystem evolution unfold in real time. So the question isn't just whether our grids and supply chains are ready for this new electric era, but whether the companies that fail to adopt to these sweeping changes today will even exist tomorrow. Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating shift with me, and keep questioning the incredible ways the world is being rebuilt around us.